Hearthstone's new expansion, Voyage to the Sunken City, is finally here. And not only do we get a new expansion, but we get a brand new core set and a brand new rotation, meaning 3 expansions leave standard. So with so much going on, it's kind of confusing where to start for the new expansion. So in this video, I theory crafted 10 decks, 1 for each class, ready for you guys to use on day 1 of the new expansion. Hey guys, I'm Funky Monki, your go-to deck builder and off-meta player, and in this video I handcrafted and refined 10 decks ready for you to use on day 1 of Voyage to the Sunken City. Now all the decks you're about to see, I wanted to make them as unique and different as possible and including as many of the new cards as I could. You're not going to see any quest decks or anything like that. So without further ado, let's hop into the first deck. Alright, so our first brand new deck is going to be this Choose One or Big Spell Druid. I was a little bit nervous about Druid after rotation because they did lose a lot of mana cheating with like Lightning Bloom and Overgrowth being gone, but Druid still does have some ramp, so it has Wild Growth, Nourish, and it still has Wild Heart Guff. So we can still ramp up to some big late game stuff. And in this deck, our big late game stuff is our big spells. So in addition to the Scale of Onyxia card that we have the new Miracle Growth and the new Flipper Friends. So we can combine those with things like Green Thumb Gardener, which is basically a 0 mana 5/5. We can combine it with the Dozing Kelp Keeper, which is basically a 1 mana 4/4. And you can even play it on the same turn as you activate it. So in like 6 mana, you can play a 1 mana Dozing Kelp Keeper and then a 5 mana Nourish to activate it right away. Or you can just play it on turn 1 and then cast a spell on turn 2, cast a spell on turn 3, and then it already awakens. And then for even more big late game stuff, we are running 2 Naga Giants, and those are super easy to get down cheap enough with our big spells. And we're also running Kalak, which is just a giant wall of stats and armor, and the new Hedra the Heretic. And one new old card that we're getting back again is Fandral Stag Helmet in the core set. So you can like play him on turn 4, going into a Nourish on turn 5 or Flipper Friends on turn 5. And yeah, overall, this deck can just do a lot of cool stuff, and it still has ramp, so it could be pretty scary. Next up on our list of new Sunken City decks is going to be this new Mech Mage. That's right, Mech Mage is back. So this list is really cool. It only runs 2 spells, and that's the Seafloor Gateways. And we can tutor those to our hand with the Frostweave Dungeoneer since it's the only spell in our deck. I actually got to test this deck out early for the early access theory crafting stream, and it was actually really good. You can get some insane discounts with the Seafloor Gateway if you have a full hand of mechs, and then you can get some big swing turns by playing like a Mecha Shark and then just dumping your hand with a bunch of cheap mechs. And if you have any mechs stick around, you can just slam down your Gaia and push a ton of damage. And this deck has surprisingly good refill too. Using the new Ashara Sweeper, we can combine it with our Trench Surveyor to dredge up the Sunken Sweeper. And when you play the Sunken Sweeper, it adds 3 random mechs to your hand, which is even more gas for your gateways, so you can keep discounting them, and even more gas for your Mecha Sharks. So yeah, with this deck, the mechs just keep on coming. All right, so this third deck is going to be a new Pirate Hooktusk Rogue. And this deck is really cool. It's very aggressive, but it also can have value and steam in the late game as well. So as always, like what Rogue likes to do, we're going to be playing some tempo with this deck. Just always trying to get ahead on board and stay ahead. But one cool combo we can do, we have the new Asharan Vessel to create a couple of stealth pirates, and then it shuffles a Sunken Vessel down to the bottom of your deck that when drawn we get to put 2 more stealth pirates onto the board for free. So we can dredge that new Sunken Vessel and play it for free with the new Gone Fishing card. So for 6 mana you get 4 stealth pirates. That's a combo. We're also running the new Krakatoa card because he's just so good. It allows you to come back on board and still push face damage with the weapon. And to top it all off, we're running the new Pirate Admiral Hooktusk card. And the plunder options that you get from Hooktusk are really cool. So you get to steal 2 cards from your opponent's hand, or steal 5 cards from their deck, or steal their biggest minion. So no matter what situation you're in, Hooktusk is always going to get some kind of value. And you can even Shadow Step her for even more shenanigans. Yeah, this deck is going to be really fun to play, but not too fun to play against. This next deck is going to be Mech Paladin. I had the pleasure of playtesting this deck early as well, and it was one of the stronger decks that I tested. I actually made a video on this already if you want to go ahead and check it out. So we're running the new Radar Detector, which can draw you up to 5 mechs, but most of the time it draws you about 3 on average, which is still really good draw. And then once we have a full hand, we can start buffing up our mechs. So most of them have Divine Shield, so we can take advantage of Prismatic Jewel Kit to buff them up. And we're also running the Alliance Bannerman. And we're even running the new High Lord 4 Dragon card, since so many of our mechs have Divine Shield. And we can even give all of our minions more Divine Shields with the Bubble Bot. So you can see this deck is going to be pretty tough to deal with all the Divine Shields and huge minions and taunts. And of course, we are running the new Colossal minion, the Leviathan. And the cool thing about mechs right now is that there's not a ton of mechs in standard. So when we discover mechs like using the Gorilla Bot, I found more of these Leviathans quite often. Shh, this next deck we're not supposed to talk about, but it's Silence Priest. I also got to play this deck for the early access event as well, and it was a lot better than I thought it would be. So we have new minions that we want to silence. We have the Selfish Shellfish and the new Helmet Hermit. And then we have even more ways of silencing them with the new Whispers of the Deep, which is amazing because it's just like a board clear and a silence in one card. And we have the new Asharan Ritual, which silences it and copies it. So you can get a few huge minions early on with this deck. And then we can make them even bigger with a couple of the blesses. And once we have like 1 or 2 big minions on the board, we can slam down our Battle Master and hit them for a ton of damage with the Wind Fury. We're also running the new Handmaiden card because for 1 card you can draw 3, which is just insane refill. Yeah, this deck was one of the more fun ones that I tried out, so I'm actually looking forward to keep playing this some more once the expansion goes live. For the next deck that I crafted for you guys is going to be this Big Beast Hunter. And yes, it does use the new Colossal minion, Hydralodon. So we can do some really cool shenanigans with this guy to cheat out our big beasts. So we have the new Harpoon Gun, which we can go ahead and dredge up one of our beasts from the bottom of our deck and discount it. So we can get like a 5-mana Hydralodon or like a 5-mana Mountain Bear. We're also using the new Asharan Saber, which when this dies, it puts a Sunken Saber down to the bottom of your deck. If you can dredge that up, like with your new weapon, and then play it, and then it dies, you get a free beast from your deck. So you can cheat out like your King Crush, you can cheat out your Hydralodons, and then we have ways of even cheating out these sabers to cheat out our big beasts with a pet collector. And then once our Hydralodon dies or like our King Crush dies, we can just resurrect them with our revived pets. And this deck just has some insane mid to late game value. All right, so the 6th or 7th or whatever number deck we're on is going to be this new Battlecry Shaman. This deck actually looks really good and has a lot of cool combos to it. But it has all the really busted Battlecry stuff that you'd expect. It still uses the Bolner, but we also have the new Bran in the core set. So we can double up our battle cries like the Coral Keeper to fill up our board of the 3/3s. We can double up the Kragwa to double the number of spells we get back to our hand. Or like the new Queen Ajara so we can get a couple of her treasures. And you get the idea. One other cool synergy that we have in here is with the Asharan Scroll and the Scalding Geyser. So once we play Asharan Scroll, we get the Sunken Scroll down to the bottom of our deck, and then we can use the Geyser to dredge it back up to the top, and when we play it, it gives us a spell school back to our hand of Fire, Frost, and Nature, which instantly activates our multicasters. And we are using the Freeze package in here just because it helps us draw and stall, which is always good. And yeah, when I put this deck together, it actually looks scary good, and there's just so many crazy combos that you can pull off with this deck. Next up is going to be one of my favorites, but I'm always a sucker for them, and it's Murloc Warlock. Murgle. So I got to test this deck out early for the theory crafting event as well, and it really surprised me. I think Murloc Warlock is actually going to be a thing. It can do some just busted stuff. So we have the new Chum Bucket, which is crazy good. Even if you have just a couple Murlocs on the board, you get a hand buff all your Murlocs in your hand by +3/+3 for just 2 mana. That's like a conditioning on steroids. And then with all the huge Murlocs that we have in our hand, we can combine them with like the Lushwater Scouts. We can give them all rush and regain the board. And to further buff the Murlocs in our hand, we are using the new Void Gill as well. And for even more refill to make sure that we always have Murlocs in our hand, we are using the new Gorlock Ravager too. One cool Murloc that really surprised me with how good he was is the Twin Fin Twin. Any kind of buff on this guy and he can just scale out of control. Yeah, if you're playing against this deck, you pretty much have to remove all the Murlocs every single turn, otherwise they can just go crazy. So I think this deck has some serious potential. Our second to last deck that we're going to go over is going to be this Big Demon Hunter. And this one is cool because it uses a couple really cool new cards. It uses the new Lag Colossal and the Abyssal Depths. And this one is pretty cool. It uses the new Abyssal Depths to guarantee finding our Vandar. We can play like a really cheap demon and then copy that with a Faceless Manipulator. Or another cool combo we can do is play like a Sigil of Reckoning on turn 5, cheat out one of our big demons at the start of our turn, and then Faceless that. So we can potentially get like a couple of Zalags on the board and then just keep buffing up all of our stocks every turn by double. And then for a little bit more survivability, we're using another new card, the Multi-Strike, which is great to kill like a turn 1 Trog, or we can combine it with like Eldrachi Warblades to kill a couple of things and get a lot of healing from it. Yeah, this deck looks really fun. And I mean, come on, who doesn't love playing with some big big minions. And for our last and final deck, but certainly not least, we're gonna be rich with Reno Warrior. That's right, they brought back Reno in the core set, so of course I had to build the deck with him. But I think Reno Warrior could actually be legit, because it has a lot of really good standalone cards that we don't mind putting in a Highlander deck. Like we have the new Trench Stalker, which is really good removal and puts a body on the board. We also have Nelly, which does the same thing, and the pirates that we discover, we can even discover like Mr. Smite plus a couple of pirates. We can even use that as like a win condition. We're using the new Ambassador Phelan for a ton of Colossals for more value, and we're also using Queen of Jara for a ton of value as well. And then for all these high impact minions, we can get them back to our hand again with Zola or repeat them with Bran. But first, we are a control deck, so we have a lot of control tools. Like we have the new Guard the City, we have Bash and Shield Block, which were also brought back to the core set. So once we survive the early game and the mid game, that's when we can start pumping out the value. And then one cool card that we got is the Sir Finley Sea Guide, and he just pairs perfectly in a Reno deck. So if we don't have Reno in our hand and we really want Reno like we're about to die, we can play Sir Finley and it's almost guaranteed to find us our Reno. We can also combo Sir Finley after we play like Ambassador Phelan to find all those colossal minions back to our hand. And there's just a surprising amount of cool synergy in this deck, even though it's Highlander. And that's going to wrap up all the decks that I have for you guys ready to use for the new Voyage to the Sunken City expansion. I hope I was able to give you guys some ideas on what to play, and all of these decks that you saw in this video were handmade and refined by me, and I've actually vowed never to net deck. So if you guys want to see the most unique, fun, creative decks for the new expansion, then consider subscribing. It's totally free and you can always change your mind. And if this video was helpful to you or you like some of the decks, then don't forget to leave a like on the video as well. That does help me out a ton with the YouTube algorithm. And now I want to hear from you guys. Let me know down below in the comment section, which deck are you looking forward to playing the most for the new expansion? Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the Sunken City.